Well, good morning, Deborah. Sorry for all the technical difficulties this morning, but you know what? You're here, and I am so proud to have you. And this is our podcast show, and it's Tuesday's Tips. And I wanted to discuss with you today your books because you're a famous writer. And I wanted to start the show for context. If somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, Deborah, what do you do?" How do you go ahead and respond to that?
What I would say is, I'm involved in keynote speaking and I'm a best-selling author. Tell me about you.
Okay, and that's so you really put it on the other person is what you're saying.
Well, I try to in the first for two reasons. Number
Okay.
one, if I were in real estate, as an example, I would
Okay.
do this is why I would do that in order to focus the interest on the other person because most people do know what a real estate broker does or what a realtor does, and I want to I want to I want to really gain their trust and by showing a genuine interest in who they are. So that would
Okay.
be one reason I would do it. In my case, the second reason is because most people don't answer with keynote speaker, best-selling author.
Okay.
And so unfortunately or fortunately, whatever, I will get too much attention if I allow it because you don't get to meet somebody like that. It's like saying, "Oh, what do you do?" Well, I'm a crime labs expert. Well, that person would get a lot of attention too because we don't meet crime lab experts very often, but we do meet banking professionals, real estate, doctors, lawyers, etc. So in both cases, it's really important that we focus the spotlight on the other person and learn about them. We all know about ourselves, David. You know about you, right? I mean,
Correct.
I was lucky enough to learn about your family. I learned about your business and how you really kicked it into high gear. I've learned about some of the people that you work with. That
Correct.
interests me far more than, as much as I'm interested in my own kids, I really am. Far more than I'm interested in your kids, right? I mean, of course,
Right.
right? But
Right.
nonetheless, I know about my kids. This is what I don't know about yours. So, I try to always remember that because it really gets too easy, whether you're outgoing or introverted. It really doesn't matter. It gets too easy to talk about ourselves when someone shows a sincere interest. And then we become monopolizers without realizing it. So I'm very careful not to talk about myself more than a few moments of time and then throw that conversation ball back.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So as we get more into this, I just want to let our audience know how I met you because it's pretty interesting. I was at a business gathering and I was sitting at a lunch table with my broker, Orna Arid, and lo and behold, Debra Fine comes and sits at our table. And we were at a table with about 8 people, I believe, at the point. And Deborah introduced herself as she does, and as you read her book, she will, go through these tips of what she does. And she came over and introduced herself. Hi, I'm Debra Fine, and I look over to her and I go, "Wow, I was just looking at this list of, what kind of the events we're going to go through the day, and we wanted to see you." And lo and behold, we started talking, and that's how we met. And it was pretty interesting stuff. And then we got to see you speak live, which is phenomenal.
No,
So I
thank
want to
you,
ask you
David.
about. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh,
It was a joy to meet you actually and to have such interesting, fun people at the table. Actually, it was really great because oftentimes I find myself at those tables, as I'm sure a lot of your audience does, whether it's because they go for their own business purposes like you did, and or they get dragged by your spouse to some horrible, banquet. Um, and you sit at a table with seven other people that don't participate and don't contribute. And so I feel like I'm doing all the work. And I that meal in Pasadena at that JP Morgan event was really great because I felt like we all contributed. It was pretty awesome.
that's true. And you actually had people contribute by you, asking specific questions. And it really, I could tell it loosened up the table. People were more at ease. And I think that kind of showed me what you were doing helps me as well as I go and speak to people too.
Oh,
Um,
great.
I do want to get into your book, The Fine Art of Small Talk. And in that, you talk about conversation killers. And
Right.
this is pretty interesting. So you talk about like the monopolizer, the know-it-all, the advisor, poor sport. Can you talk to me about you're having a conversation? Talk to me about these conversation killers. How do we stop it from happening?
Well, we can only stop ourselves, David. We can't stop other people. I mean, we can try. We can try to exit conversations. Well, we don't have to try. We can just do it. We can redirect
Okay.
conversations into a topic maybe that is more comfortable. If we have a monopolizer on our hands that won't, they just go on and on about their vacation or their, 5-year-old who's going into the Olympics someday because they're such a physical specimen. I mean, we can try to redirect that by saying something along the lines of, wow, your son sounds amazing. So, tell me, catch me up. Like, what's new with your business since the last time we talked? Try to redirect that conversation. But, here's some examples of what we do
Okay.
in conversation without even realizing it. Sometimes we top each other. Like, let's say I know you had is it your son that just went off to music school?
My
Your
daughter
daughter,
just went off
sorry.
to Nashville.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, went off to Nashville. So unfortunately, sometimes we hear conversations like this. So, tell me, what's new this summer, David? And he goes, oh, my daughter went off to Nashville. We're missing her. She went to university there. She's a musician. And, you start saying that. And then instead of me saying, well, tell me about her background. What has she done previously? How's she doing with like being away from home? All the normal things that I should show an interest in about your daughter. Instead, what
Right.
if I say, do this? This is what I call the person who either tops the other person and or tries to match them. So what if I said to you, oh, David, that's great. One of my sons, he played football in college. I mean, and I just start talking to you about my son. Like,
Okay.
hold your horses, Deborah. You don't need to match David's experience. How about we learn about your son? You know what he did. This is not a game. It's not a contest to see if his daughter is better or worse than your son. That is not what conversation should be about. Although we fall into this trap so often where we go, oh, business has been really tough because these tariffs, we're uncertain for our business how our holiday sales are going to be. And the
Right.
other person responds with, that's nothing. You know what we've had to live with this legislation for taxes for healthcare? And they just start going on their own vent when we were talking about how tariffs were impacting our business. Don't top other people, nor try to match them by saying, oh, I had a kid that went to college. Well, okay, Deborah, good for you. First of all, your kids are quite a bit older than David's. They should have been to college already and out. So, and so that's one example of a conversation killer where we find that we seek commonalities with people,
Okay.
and that's natural and normal. We do like to be with people that are either like-minded, or we went on the same trip, or read books, or have children, or don't have children, or whatever. But on the other hand, if I'm matching you all the way down the line with, oh, I did that, or I've been to there, or I want to do that, then I don't learn about you. So that's an example of a conversation killer. Here's another great one, the
Okay.
advisor. Now, anybody who is a parent is the advisor, sometimes when they should be, sometimes when they shouldn't be, but whatever. Well, putting that aside,
I
how
know
about,
many advisors, Deborah.
oh, I bet there's somebody at your dinner table like that. But I mean, we all have to hold ourselves back that are parents. But in real life, you'll hear somebody say, in business life, you'll see someone say, well, my boyfriend, I'm really not happy. We've been dating for a year, but I don't like the way he does this, and he's certainly not happy about this, and I wish he would do this. And so here am I, I'm her girlfriend, let's say, and I'm going to play the advisor without having that solicited. I say, well, Marjorie, have you considered, why don't you just leave him? I mean, dump this guy. He's not worth your time. Now, I think Marjorie knows she can get rid of this guy. This is America. It's a free country. What I should do is not advise her what to do with her boyfriend. I should either commiserate, oh, that sounds tough.
Mm,
Wow, that must be frustrating. Oh, I feel bad, that you're going through this. Or I can possibly, if I feel this strongly about it, say, if there's anything I can do or advice I can supply, just, let me know. I'm your best friend. But don't jump in there and tell people how to do their resumes, or tell people how they should, well, why haven't you sold this house? I mean, most people don't stay in a house more than 20 years. What are you doing here? I mean,
right.
but people talk like that. Haven't,
Right.
so that's the advisor in conversation.
Got
We
it.
we talked about earlier about the monopolizer. Anytime you talk about yourself more than, I say, like 3 to 4 minutes, whether it's your trip, your business, your new project, your garden, whatever it may be, you've gone over the line, and it's time to throw the conversation ball back.
Well, I know you specifically have a rule that you don't talk to somebody more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Is that correct?
Well, I don't talk about myself more than 5 minutes. I'll talk to you. I talk to you longer than 5 minutes.
Right. When talking about yourself, but you want to, as you say, pass the ball to them to keep the
Yes,
conversation going. Got
exactly.
it.
I want
Got
it to
it.
be like a volleyball game instead of or tennis, rather than a batting cage where I just, questions keep coming at them or at
Got it.
me.
I understand. Give me an example. You talk about when you go to a party. What kind of icebreaker would you use if you don't know anybody at this party?
Okay, well, two directions you can go that I think are great. One is you have a what I call free information about the occasion, location. You're at a party, so you either it's the same host that you
Okay.
have, and or it's for the same event. It's a fundraiser. It's with church or synagogue. It's something like right. It's at the
Okay.
library or whatever it may be, some community event. So go if you want to go in that direction. The free information about the location or occasion. Say, how did you get involved with this charity? What created your passion for this fundraiser? Tell me about your interest in this book signing. The free
Okay.
information is we're all at a book signing. We're all at this. How do you know the host or hostess? Like I walk into a lawyer's. I mean, I'm sure this happens to you, David, because that must be a great referral source. You walk into a lawyer's open house for the holiday season, which is a month away from us now, or
Right.
a little more, and you say, so how do you know our host or hostess? How are you connected to this law firm? If I
Hmm.
walked in your house, if I was lucky enough to be invited, I would say to anybody there, how do you know David?
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's one way. The other
And
thing
you
I
are
do.
invited, by the way.
Oh, great. That's good to know. I want to come when I have a feeling you guys are great cooks. So the food
Thank
must
you.
be great there. But so the other thing I would do, an alternative to that, or both, of course, is to say to somebody that's new to me, that I've never met, is to say
Hmm.
to them, so outside of going to this fundraiser, what keeps you busy? Or if I'm at an educational conference where I know you're a realtor and I'm a realtor, or I'm in title and you're a realtor, I go, so what keeps you busy outside of work? Now I know you work. Or I might
Mm.
say, if I meet you at a baby shower, I might say, so tell me, what keeps you busy outside of going to this baby shower? I mean, what's a typical day like for you? And so then they'll either tell me that they work or they stay home with their kids or they are
Mm.
retired or whatever it is that they want to tell me. So that's usually how I get started. One of those directions.
Got it.
Or tell me
Um,
about you. Sometimes I'll just say, tell me about you. The key is to be as friendly as possible, but to take the lead. I can't wait for you, David, to take the lead because no offense to you, but in
mhm.
most people's case, you just wait all day. So I take the lead and said, tell me about you. Tell me about you. I don't know anything about you. I just met you.
And so that's how you started. So tell me
Yes.
about you, and that's how you keep it going. And if they start slowing down, you're just kind of leading them to keep the conversation going without them stopping it, so to speak.
Right. If it's excruciating or if you don't seem interested in talking to me, you just continue to give me one word answers. And I don't know if I'll feel rejected anymore. I used to feel that way. I try not to take it personally any longer and just feel like you're either distracted, maybe you're in a bad mood, you got things on your mind, or maybe there's somebody more important there that you'd rather talk to than me. And, it could be any of those instances. So I move on to talk to somebody else.
Got it. I want to talk to you a little bit more about names. I know you, first of all, you have a great thing about remembering people's names. That's one. I'll get into that in a minute. But you also talk when you address somebody, if they say, "Hey, my name is Michael," you don't call them Mike, you call them by their name. I know that you have an issue with somebody calling you Debbie, let's say. I know I'm guilty if I meet somebody and they tell me their real name, I may call them a nickname. And it happened to me this weekend, and I started thinking about what you
You did
said.
that, David,
And
with a name like
I did.
yours? You did that? Oh,
Well, not mine.
oh,
It was the other person. The other person's name was Doug, and I called
oh,
him Douglas.
oh.
And then I started thinking about, oh my God, Deborah said don't do that. So I know I'm guilty of that. Um, why don't you think it's more like if a nickname or somebody, wouldn't that make them more comfortable though? And you're saying don't do that?
Well, I hate the nickname. I mean, I hate Debbie. No one can see me right now, but you know what I look like. I'm not blonde and I'm
Yes.
not cute in any way. So I think the word that name Debbie applies to like the Debbie Reynolds of the world, the cute, adorable blonde people, and that's not me. So I just hate that. It just sets me off. Now, Rebecca's don't like to be called Becky. Michael's don't like to be called Mike. I
Mm,
just think we like the sound of our own name, and I don't mean it in the schmoozy way where people just repeat you. You're with someone who's been trained to use names and they just use names over and over and you're just like stop already. I get it, you know my
right.
name. I'm saying though that it's Susans do not want to be called Sue. I just that's not their name. And
Got it.
there's names out there like Mary Ann or even Mary Carol or whatever. Just be careful, their name isn't Mary. So I don't think it's like Douglas. If he corrected you, that means it bothers him as much as it bothers me. Now, how do you feel about being called Dave?
I don't mind. Even though my proper name is David, I go around saying Dave, but if somebody calls me either one, I'm okay with it. But I guess it's like you're saying it's the other person if they feel uncomfortable. Now this person Douglas, he didn't correct me on it. He goes, "Oh, you're calling me by my proper name. That's really cool."
Oh,
So I
nice.
guess it, yeah,
Nice.
I guess it depends on the person, correct?
It depends on the person, and my guess is that like I introduce myself as Deb a lot because that's the name I go by. I use
Okay.
Deborah in work because of Google. You have to keep
Okay.
your search engine optimization. But I go by Deb. So
Okay.
if somebody were to call me Deb, if I go, "Hi, I'm Deb Fine," and they go, "Oh, hi, Deborah," I wouldn't, any the formal. It's when somebody makes it even more nickname. I think most people can't stand. I
Well,
really think it bugs people when they like Sue or Susie or whatever.
can you give me, I was so impressed when you were speaking in front of the whole crowd, and just to give some people background, you were working the room beforehand at lunch and mingling, and then when we went into the big auditorium and you spoke to people, you were picking people out of the audience and addressing them by their name. How do you remember people's names? It was phenomenal. Give
Oh,
me some
thanks,
tips.
David. Well, I mean, let's be real here. So, how did I remember those names? I'm on stage. I have whatever amount, a couple hundred in the audience. How would I remember their names? Because I worked hard. I was working. I worked hard at it. So I apply that same energy. If you did invite me to your home, let's say I was
Mhm.
lucky enough to go to your home, and you were
Right.
having an event or a party, and there's 40 people there. Everyone I met, I would really try to remember their name. I would shake their hand, and I would not only repeat their name, but in my head, I'm saying to myself, her name is Susan. Her name is Elizabeth. Her name is Miriam. Whatever, and I'm repeating it, but I'm also taking a break in my head and trying to remember it. So
Okay.
clearly, when I do it, when you saw me on stage, I don't want to give myself a pat on the back because I was working hard. I do that for every keynote I deliver. I do exactly what you witnessed, and for the exact reason that you just shared. Well, one reason is because it's impressive. People like, oh my, she might call me, she knows my name, like, so it
Right.
keeps, it's sort of a great way to hold an audience. But it's also how I really am with people's names. Even when people came to our table for lunch, I was saying, "Oh, have you met Orna? Have you met David?" Because I memorized your names, and Orna is a unique name. It's
Correct.
not hard to say, of course, but nonetheless, it's unique. So you just have to, when you make an effort, I think anybody would be good at remembering names. I'm guessing, and I don't live in the same state as you, David, but so if I did and chose to retain you as my realtor, and
Mhm.
if my guess is if I invited you to a party and said, "Oh, this is my realtor," Dave Markovitz, my guess is you probably make every effort, everyone you met in my home, to remember their name because it's a great opportunity to meet my friends, right? So
Correct.
you'd work hard, and I think you'd do really well. And on top of that, if you were my realtor, I would have every confidence that you know all the ethics and legalities of real estate law and transaction in the state of California. I feel absolute confidence in you, Dave. So how do you know all that and you can remember all that and you can't remember people's names? Like
That's
it
that's a
doesn't even
really
make
interesting
sense to
point.
me because you're obviously very successful and you can't get licensed. You can't maintain your license in real estate unless you stay on top of that game. And by the game, I mean the ethics. And I mean, I've been accredited in real estate. You have to really know the all the transactional laws and et cetera. And if you can do that
Mhm.
for over a month, I think you can remember people's names. So it's all about investing time and energy.
So there's no really specific tip or anything you can do. It's just
Well,
really putting
try.
putting effort. Try, right?
Yeah. Say the
Okay.
name once out loud, but say the name in your head where you're saying to yourself, I'm not just repeating it like some robot, because that's what we do. We go, "Oh, Mary, good to meet you. Carol, good to meet you. Joe, nice to meet you." And we're saying it, but we're not
We're not
listening
retaining
and we're
it.
not, we're not being present. And I don't,
Ah,
people talk a lot now about being mindful, and that is
right.
part of mindfulness to me, where you actually focus on the moment you're in instead of thinking about what you're going to say next or the business at hand. That is mindfulness. And being present that I'm meeting you and knowing your name.
I
I
think
mean,
that's the key.
we need to slow down, right?
Right, right.
We
I
all
think
do.
you just hit it on the head. I think that being mindfulness, and you're in the moment, and give that person that respect that you're speaking with, and don't be looking over your shoulder to, oh, they're boring. Who's the next person in line? And you're taking your focus off that one
Right,
person.
right,
I agree. Um, Another thing I just want to get into, I know you have some other books, and there's a book called The Fine Art of the Big Talk. So you did this small talk, and now you have the big talk. In the big
right.
talk, you talk about energy, and when you come into a room, you can feed off positive energy and attract people to you in that room. Can you elaborate more on that? You know.
Well, I mean, you're a good example. I mean, those people who have not met you that are listening can hear the energy in your voice. And
Thank you, by
actually,
the way.
you're welcome. I mean, it's true. And it's interesting because I have been interviewed by people that are flat.
Okay.
But I've met people, and we've all met people that are flat. We know the difference, right, between high energy and flat. And I
Right.
just want to tell the audience that his energy is no different in person than it is. I mean, you're a host of a podcast, so you better bring your energy up, right?
Correct.
Okay. But
Correct.
this is exactly how you are. I mean, you talk a little faster in real life, but otherwise, I mean, but you can do that, right? You're not being
Right.
measured,
Right.
but that laugh we just all heard, that's
Mhm.
part of who he is. I mean, that's his positive energy is just sort of, it lights up rooms, that kind of energy.
Thank you
Um,
very much for that. I
Orna,
appreciate that.
Orna is a good example. His partner
Right.
is, she's a good example of positive energy, but in a more reserved way. Her laugh does not come as easily as David's. Now, I don't mean that as a criticism. In fact, I'm more like Orna than I am like David. I don't get He giggles. He's
Right.
sort of like, you're sort of jolly, you're
Right.
just a little vivacious. Orna and I are more reserved, but you have a smile planted on your face all the time. I do
Thank
not,
you.
and neither does Orna. And so we have to I can't speak for her. I'm just saying I recognize myself in her a lot. She has to do like me. She has to put the energy out there through her smile. I have to put a smile on my face. And it's not that it's not insincere. It's just that it's just not my natural energy.
Wow.
So everybody should be aware of how they come across out there, and usually the people, I mean, I think you were sort of born with a gift, David, where that's just your personality. So
Thank you.
I'm not giving you any credit here. Like when you get to, it's like being born tall, like, so what,
Mhm.
but LeBron James did something with it. But the fact that he's tall is not like a talent. Okay. So you were born with a gift of gab, but there
But
are
I still think I'm an introvert,
well,
and I
you
tell that to
and you may
people.
be, but you put out positive energy, and that's a really good thing.
Okay, so that's
You
probably
know.
the difference. You're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it probably is, and you make people feel warm because you're welcoming, I suppose. But I think for the rest of us, we just need to be aware of what we are putting out there. Like when I walk in a room or
Mhm.
like your home or anything like that, I say to myself when I leave the car, when I enter the door, just turn it on. And by turning it on, I don't mean schmooze at all. I mean
Okay.
a smile, my body language, positive energy. I'm standing up straight. I'm giving eye contact out. I'm being very conscious of putting out positive energy, and don't assume that you are without examining it. Everyone deserves some self-analysis, of thinking about, how would I look in a mirror right now? How are people seeing me? If you are, even, it's funny, if you're carrying your phone in your hand,
Right.
guess what I decided that you are easily distracted.
Mm.
It's just like, put your phone away. See, to me, it's like, if we're at a party, put your phone in your pocket or your hand, your pocketbook or whatever, because
Right.
I noticed that's not positive energy to me. But that's me. I'm a little. My husband says I'm a little too observant of things,
Well,
meaning he wants to keep his phone out at the table. That's all that means. I
you
don't know.
just led me into segue because you were talking about people holding their phone in their hands. I want to talk about your latest book, which is about teenagers and beyond texting, face-to-face communication. And all these kids have their phones, planted to their face, and you're trying to teach the young ones, as I say right now, how to converse, communicate.
Right.
Can you get into a little bit more as we wrap up about this point?
Yes. And by the way, David, just to correct, it's not about teenagers, it's for teenagers. I'm not
Okay.
dissing teenagers. I'm not, I think actually most of us are as guilty as any teenager of texting, emailing, hiding behind devices as any teenager. Here's the difference: it's an
Okay.
accepted norm to all of them, it's their way of communicating. So the goal of that book, Beyond Texting, is to be able to interact face to face with your coach, your teacher, making friends, going on dates, with your parents in difficult conversations, where you want to communicate with them. That's the goal of that book, is to give that art of conversation to them, so when they need it or they want to use it,
Hmm.
it's there for them. It offers those skills and tools. The other thing about that, though, it is hard for kids now because so much of it is high tech. But you know
Right.
what? There's a book I read a long time ago by Peter Nesbitt. I'm forgetting it, but he talked about the high tech. We will long for high touch. I think we all long we sit at our desks behind computers, we use our devices. Teenagers are it's harder for them. They want to make
Right.
friends. They want to have face-to-face connections. How do they do that? And that's what that book is for.
Got it. Got it. Well, this has all been great, great stuff.
Thank you.
How can people find you, get your books? How do we get in touch with you?
Thank you for asking, David. The best way is via my website, which is www.debrafine.com. So it's DebraFine, debrafine.com, or just Google me. And if you spell it right, I come up. And even if you spell it wrong, I bought those domains too a long time ago.
Wow.
Hooray.
But
So,
everything else also on Amazon, books on
yes,
Amazon.
yes. Amazon or any bookstore too, as well. Thanks for
Perfect.
asking.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. I know,
You're
you've,
welcome. It was my pleasure. And it's great
no,
to just connect this way and see technology is a good thing, right?
it is
Even though
because
I
we're
can't see
actually,
you.
we can't see me. I am taping this on my side, so you will see my face and you'll see my energy and laughter, as you mentioned. But, this is what technology brings. We're able to converse across the country.
That's great. And
So,
that's really great. I appreciate the opportunity.
no, absolutely. Thank you so much. And guys, go out, read her books, go see her live. She's amazing. And Deborah, have a great, great day. And we will be in touch.
Thanks, David. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care, hon. Bye bye.